everybody. We have a really awesome guest here today. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in to Wattpad4. I will let her introduce herself because I keep screwing up how to pronounce her name and I don't want to be that person. So, take it away.
Hi guys, I'm Zoraida Córdova. I'm the author of the Vicious Deep trilogy, Labyrinth Lost, which is also part of the Brooklyn Bruja series, and the On the Verge series, which is romance, new adult stuff. And everything else that I write is fantasy and magical and teenage girls kicking ass. So thanks for having me today.
We're excited to have you because of your teenage girls kicking ass and fantasy. We're all pretty big fantasy fans here. We're obviously fans of girls kicking ass. So, because Zoraida, did I just say it wrong? Did I say it right? No. Zoraida, because Zoraida is in Puerto Rico right now, we are going to only do half an hour of video, and then we're going to take it to Twitter and we're going to open it up to questions from you guys. So tune in, tweet us your questions, and we're going to go through them at the end. But we have some questions from ourselves and some questions that you guys tweeted in earlier that we're going to just jump right in because we don't have very long. So I think Erin is going to start us off.
Oh, am I? Okay. Yeah. My first question is about your writing process and what exactly that's like, your normal day as an author.
So my normal day as an author has changed in the past month because I'm not home. I'm in Puerto Rico for the month of February, which means I leave in 2 days. And so my days have gotten longer. So I basically wake up, go for a walk around the neighborhood or on the beach, and then have my coffee and then go to a coffee shop nearby and just write for, like, I want to say 3 hours. And then I have lunch and then give myself another break and then write again. And I think that giving myself that schedule has really helped me increase my output as far as word count, just because I have a timetable to look forward to. So I even like schedule breaks, like, you know, go online for 15 minutes and, you know, look at GIFs of cats or something like that. And I think it's just important to have a mental break when you're doing stretches that are that long.
I would need an alarm clock to make sure that I'm not just getting lost in the sea of the internet on that 15 minutes.
No, I do put on like the little iPhone like timer or whatever, because otherwise, you know, an hour goes by and you're scrolling through Insta stories.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I have a question.
Okay.
They say that, you know, authors put a little bit of themselves in each character. And so I wonder, which is your favorite character and how do you think that character is similar to you?
So a lot of people think that my character Alex from Labyrinth Lost is like me because she's Latina and she has a big family. But honestly, the character that I feel like is kind of most like me when I was younger is Tristan Hart from the Vicious Deep trilogy, because he's kind of like, he's really aloof and he just says the first thing that's on his mind, even if it's offensive, or, you know, like he was still growing into himself. And I feel like when I was a teenager and when in my college years, I was still growing into myself as like a human being as well. And he's just like silly jokes too. So I think that Tristan is basically more like me. Plus he's half merman. So I'm gonna claim.
He's a fun character. He's a fun character.
Are you trying to say you're half mermaid? No.
What are you not telling us?
You're spending time on the beach a lot.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Oh no, my secret's revealed. So I would go with Tristan.
Okay.
Okay, I have a question. Is there any scene you wrote that you had to cut that was just painful for you to cut from your story?
Yes. Every book has had a big chunk of it just, you know, cut it out, as Uncle Joey would say in Full House. So I'm going to talk about Labyrinth Lost just because it's my most recent release. So in Labyrinth Lost, I cut out a scene which had a mermaid in it.
You're trying to keep your secret a secret.
Like becoming really thematic in my life. So it was basically like, you know, in Los Lagos, for those of you who've read Labyrinth Lost, it's this fantasy world, and there's this little place on the map. If you flip to the map in Labyrinth Lost, it's called Laguna Roja, which means the Red Lagoon. And originally I had a mermaid there, and she was there because she was punished by the sea goddess, who was like in love with her, but the mermaid betrayed her and fell in love with this man who the sea goddess turned into a condor, so they can't ever be together because he's just like circling above her. And she's like in this lagoon, and it was kind of supposed to represent the anguish that Alex felt in a lot of situations, and the having things be unattainable when you really want to have them. But then again, it was just another mission for Alex to go on, and it didn't really fit anymore after the edits. So I cut it out, but I really love that story.
I was going to say, I hope you saved it. That would be an awesome read.
Like a cool short story I could send out, you know, like if anybody's interested, like in a newsletter or something like that. But it'll have to be after I turn in the revisions.
Are you doing a sequel to Labyrinth Lost right now?
Yeah, I'm working on the sequel. It's called, it's a companion novel. It's called Circle Unbroken. And it's from Lula, the oldest sister's point of view.
Oh, nice. That's cool.
Next question.
Next question. Who's got the next one?
Is it me?
Can go again.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's Erin.
Yes, it's me. Okay, so my question is about how long you've been writing and when your very first story, and maybe even if we're allowed hearing a little bit about what your first story was about, because those stories are always fun.
Definitely. I really love this. I really love this question because, so I knew that I wanted to be a writer when I was 13. Like, I just knew. There was an author at the same time named Amelia Water Rhodes, and she writes fantasy and urban fantasy. And so when she got her first book deal when she was 13, so her first book came out when she was 14, through Delacorte Random House. And when I saw how old she was, because I think it was in like my issue of Teen People or something like that, or like YM magazine. And they had like an interview about her and how she was a teenager and she was publishing books. And to me, that moment, it became very apparent that it didn't matter how old I was, like I could be an author. And so I set out to start writing my first book. I was 13. And my first short story, because I didn't know that there was like, oh, you need an actual word count, you know, to write a book. So it was this 21-page short story based on my friends who, like, one of my girlfriends was in love with this guy, but he had a girlfriend, so she dated his best friend. It was this whole thing. And so I called it Final Heartbreak after the Jessica Simpson song.
That's awesome.
And that was my first story. And so, but you know, I got a check plus in my English literature class, and then I wrote a story about an earthquake, and a bunch of friends. One of whom was named Pacey because I was obsessed with Dawson's Creek. So I would just basically name all the characters in my books after characters that I liked. So there was like an angel, there was a Johnny Bravo. Like I just had no concept of like, you know, like you can't just use characters' names that already exist, you know, and say like they're your own. So I learned a lot between ages 13 and 17. And then when I was 17, I wrote my first like full book. And it was 120 pages, and so it was like my like masterpiece up to that point. And it was about witches and in Salem, Massachusetts. But I had no historical accuracy. So it didn't really make sense. I did not research for that book, but it was, it was fun experimenting and writing and seeing kind of like how you evolve from like your wee baby author years until you finish like your full book.
Wow. And just as far as, writing your stories, do you plot them, or like just when the story comes to you, what's like the first thing you do?
So I plot my stories hardcore. I wonder, well, let me see if I have anything right with me.
Show us.
Okay, I'm gonna flip the video. Hopefully this works. So
Oh, wow.
I plot everything out. This is my romance book. And so I obviously number them because then I wouldn't be able to finish them. And I do the Blake Snyder beat sheet, and I write every single scene that's going to happen. So I have like 10 of these, and that's the entire book in a summary. So that's really how I plot. And I do that for every book because my first book, The Vicious Deep, I did not plot that book. And so like those things, when you're writing a series, like there are a lot of consequences because things that you establish in book one, like it's done. And so if you want to change something for book two, but you didn't plot, then that's just a newbie mistake. And I made that. So I've learned a lot from that process.
How long does it take you to plot a book?
I give myself a week. I do scene by scene. But sometimes I've done it in a day. Like I just don't stop until the book is plotted. And sometimes I don't know what's going to happen. So I'll just write like a filler scene, and hopefully like it, things work out from there. But for the most part, I don't stress too much about it because as I'm writing, it's going to change anyway. And as you're as you're writing like a character, we say that a character does something on their own, but it's just you knowing that something feels right when your character just, delineates from your carefully plotted worksheet. And so that's more organic.
Right.
What's your world building process like? Like obviously you plot a lot. Do you do the same sort of detail with your world building?
Yeah. I usually keep a notebook for each book, and it'll be a notebook that doesn't have any lines on it. So I can draw like characters, or if I find a cutout. I don't really get magazines anymore. When I was like younger, I used to get magazines and cut out models that looked like people. So it was like the original Pinterest. So I keep things like that remind me of the world. I keep a Pinterest board that remind me of my characters. I write down the magical systems, if there is a magical system, how it works, for Labyrinth Lost, there are a lot more things that went into it. Like I created the gods. So when I created the gods, I created their history, how, where they came about. And because Alex's story deals with family and heritage, with ancestors and things like that, I had to build her family tree just so that I wouldn't mess up on names. So it's really just like a lot of the back work that the reader doesn't get to see. And that's totally fine. But I think that you just need to take a little bit of time and do it so that and you can answer those questions even if the reader isn't going to ask them.
Right. And it does make for a more well-rounded story. I feel like when you know the background, you can definitely tap into the character when you're writing them, and they just come out more fuller. So yeah.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to just quickly say, sorry before anyone else asks questions, we have quite a few viewers now. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming out.
Hi.
And please ask questions. That's why we're doing this so that you guys can ask live questions as well. So, and then I think Rebecca was going to say that we'll eventually be over on Twitter as well, but not many questions so far. So.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to bring up the topic of diversity because this month we've been talking about love interests, being February. It's the month of love. So it's kind of been our focus in all the Wattpad4 chats. And I really like how you kind of approached it in a couple of your books. And so I wanted to bring that to you. Obviously, diversity is a really big deal for us. And so can you tell us in your words what diversity means to you, how you put that in your work, and what diversity in love interests looks like and is like to you?
So, it's kind of an interesting question because I recently had a friend send me an interview that she did of me for a class that we took in the University of Montana. It's a really long-winded answer. University of Montana in like 2008, and we were taking a Spanish class, and she did an interview of me, and she asked me something about being ethnic or like ethnicity. And I was like, well, I didn't really go to school to learn about being ethnic because I already am, you know? And so I think that I don't approach my books, and I've never approached my books with the idea that I need to make them more diverse. I approach them as I'm writing the kind of world that I already live in. And I think that I kind of have already an understanding of that just because I grew up in Queens, New York, and Queens is it is the most diverse borough in New York, if not the States. You know what I mean? There are hundreds of languages being spoken in different neighborhoods. And so for me, I just sort of wrote the people that I saw. So, you know, Alex's best friend, Rishi, is Guyanese Indian because all of my friends growing up were Guyanese Indian. And I didn't really think of that. I just created her as that character because that's who she was. I don't think that it's beneficial for diverse books to go in with a checklist because I feel that ends up not being authentic. I know that we want people to write more diversely, but if somebody feels like they're being forced to, they're not going to do a good job anyway. So I would just rather not. And I know that some people don't agree with that, but I think that we all have to get to a point where we represent the world like it is. And that world is really diverse to begin with. So it's more about writing the truth than about creating something because you feel like you're being forced to do it. And I think writing honestly and creating fully rounded characters is really important when writing books like that. As far as the relationship between Alex and Rishi, I also didn't set out to write a bisexual love triangle. Because I didn't see it as a love triangle because I didn't think that Nova had a chance at all. So some of my readers might find it controversial because some of them do root for Nova, which is totally fine. You know, everybody interprets a book differently. So I wanted Alex to have a love that went outside of her family. And she needed to know that she was loved without somebody being related to her. And Rishi loved her unconditionally and just like in a very pure way. And the idea that like love is really important in my books just because I have like lots of LGBTQ family members, and it's important for me to have that on the page because that's my reality as well.
That's awesome. Actually, that leads right into a question I kind of had because I write and read a lot of LGBTQ stuff. And so Labyrinth Lost has come up on so many LGBT lists. So it was something that I was really looking forward to reading. And I was going to ask if you had any, because sometimes family can be more traditional, if you had any problems with that, or if you had weren't sure about writing it or anything, but then you sort of just addressed it with your family. So that's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, like my uncle came out as the apartment that I'm living in. It's theirs. He came out when I was in high school, and so it was very difficult for him because like we're an Ecuadorian family, we're immigrants, we're there. You know, my family's Catholic, so it was difficult for him. But at the end of the day, you know, like now he jokingly says that we love his husband more than we love him. So, so it's, you know, I think that I didn't worry about my family, but also most of my family doesn't read in English, so I have no problem. You know, like I can just write
whatever you want.
So my situation is different. But you know, I think that it's time for, so like I'll put it this way. There have been sorry, I look like I'm frozen. There have been a bajillion sweet summer romances about middle-class white people forever. And I think it's time that we have stories like that for people of color, for people of different, you know, sexualities and spectrums. And I think that it's just, you know, I think that's how we become more inclusive, is not by writing about the marginalization, but including marginalizations within genres, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. I was actually going to say, like, one of the reasons I was so excited for Labyrinth Lost is because it's not an issues book and it has that LGBTQ element in it without being about that and only that. That was very exciting to me.
You know, there's still people in this country that need that book about immigration, and they need that book about coming out. Because the books out that are about those topics, I think they're older. But they also don't need the tragic versions of those stories. And I think that's where a lot of the diversity conversation becomes more split. So, I mean, there's a lot to talk about and a lot of ground to cover. And we've only just started. So I'm hoping that it'll keep going stronger in the next couple of years.
Girls, any other questions?
I'm checking on Twitter to see if...
Okay, I'm going to ask a question like every author that we've ever hosted gets asked. Where do you get your inspiration from? I'm sure everybody's want to know.
I don't know. Most of the time, I feel like I just have a story that I want to tell about a specific character. And so the character always appears in my head. Sometimes writers sound very...
We completely understand you.
No, I totally get it.
You know what I mean? Like, so the character appears fully formed in my head, and then the world falls around them. So, for example, with The Vicious Deep, I was at Coney Island, and Coney Island in Brooklyn is a super fun place. It's like a gritty arcade area. There's carousel. There's like a Ferris wheel, and you know, they have this thing called Sideshow Freaks, which is like just carnies, and some of them have been on American Horror Story. And so I was at Coney Island, and everything there is named after mermaids. So like Ocean Avenue, Mermaid Avenue. There's a Mermaid Avenue in Coney Island. And so I was at the beach one day. I think I skipped my college classes that day because I'm a terrible, terrible influence on people. And I saw this lifeguard on the beach, and he just sort of like, I imprinted on him like in Twilight. I saw him, and then I was like, so I just started asking questions. Who is he? Where did he come from? If he were this character in my head, all of a sudden he became like half merman. And so I went from there, like, so if he is this half merman guy, like, where did he come from? What's his story? Why is he here? And so the more questions I started asking of this character, you know, the lifeguard's long gone by now. But the character stuck. So like the more questions I started asking about this character, the more the world fell around it, and Coney Island became intrinsic to that because I was there, and it became a huge inspiration for that series.
That's awesome.
I hope the lifeguard reads your book and like recognizes it's me.
Wow.
Mysterious lifeguard, Craigslist misconnections.
Yeah. Be the best meet cute.
And for Labyrinth Lost, what brought that about?
Oh, Labyrinth Lost. I really, in my head, I was like, well, what if I write about witches that have a magic that is not based on Celtic things, right? Like traditional, you know, like it's always Wicca, and Wicca comes from Europe. So I started imagining what a magical system would be like if we had if it was like a fictitious magical system that came from Latin America. And so when I started asking all those questions, you know, Latin America exists because of colonialism and slavery, so all of the magic would have to correspond to all of those things as well. And yeah, that's sort of where I started developing the idea. And it was always the story of three sisters, because 3 is my power number.
Me too.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Same with Leah.
and she loves mermaids.
Yeah. I feel like we should adopt you.
Absolutely.
It could be Wattpad 5, right?
It's amazing. Whenever it comes to picking a number, Leah and I always like toss up who gets 3 this time. Like we have to share it.
Yeah.
I love it.
You guys are all like slap fighting over who gets to pick 3.
Yes. Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny how numbers and things like that have such influence into our work. Like you have 3 characters that are important now because of your love for the number 3.
Well, 3 is kind of the magic number in fiction in general. Well, in entertainment and art, right? 3-act structure and all that.
3-act structure. I've been reading a lot of novels that have 4-act structures recently.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's
the new.
really-
They're kind of modeling it off the screenplay kind of concepts. But yeah, there's the rule of 3 as well.
Of course.
That's a big writing tip. Yeah. Well, we're almost to our half hour, and we don't want to make your data bill too expensive, but I have a couple more questions. Today Sourcebooks is like number 10 best-selling publisher, so that's pretty rad. That came out today, and you are with Sourcebooks, so that's cool. We have a lot of our friends in the Wattpad community working with Sourcebooks too, so can you tell us a bit about what it's like working with them? Because they're a pretty cool publisher and what they're doing these days.
Cool publisher. I really love, Dominique Rocca is our publisher. She's a very fearless woman. She built this company from the ground up. I think Sourcebooks is as old as I am, because I'm pretty sure it started in 1987. So, you know, it's going on almost 30 years. I think that Sourcebooks does a lot of innovative things, and they like to think outside the box when it comes to the kind of stories that they publish. You know, like, I feel like a Brooklyn Bruja book might not have gone so well with like the big 5, especially in a time when people are asking for more diversity. But Sourcebooks never treats me like I'm a quota author. You know,
That's
they
awesome.
treat me just like an author. And I think that I really appreciate that. And I've loved all of my editors working there. The publicity people at Sourcebooks. Oh, it's raining outside. The people from Sourcebooks are incredible. They're such hardworking women. And I just really love being with a publisher that champions that, and they champion their authors. So they basically, you know, like, I don't know, I don't want to talk bad about other publishers, but like, I don't know, because I don't know what that experience is, but like, they really treat us like like rock stars, you know, and one of their mottos is authors are our rock stars. So I love
That's so
that.
cool.
So I love that you said, oh yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry, on Twitter before we go. From Fallon, she wants to know. Oh, we're going to head over to Twitter?
We're going to head over to Twitter in like a couple minutes, and then she
Okay,
can answer right there. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess you can answer there.
No, I can answer it now if you want.
Oh, okay. So Fallon wants to know who are some authors you admire and inspire you, and if there was a book you could stamp your name on, what would it be?
That's a good question.
So one of my like ultimate inspirations for writing is Libba Bray. I physically remember buying A Great and Terrible Beauty in like 2005, 2002 where it came out. I remember buying that book because it was so beautiful and had like the deckled edges and that beautiful red jacket. And it showed me that the new way of writing fantasy or writing fantasy in YA, which was, you know, it was very voicey, the characters, and it was in first person. And for me, I always struggled with adult science fiction fantasy because it was very dense, and not dense as in like too much exposition. It's just dense as in I like character-driven stories, and that's one of the reasons I love YA fantasy a lot. So Libba Bray is one. I love Leigh Bardugo. I think she's an incredible world builder. I just want to live in her worlds, even being Hetterdam. What else? Oh my God, I just blanked. Oh, Holly Black. Holly Black's Worker series. That reveal of that first book was incredible. I really love author friends. I started reading Rashi Chakshi, The Star Touch Queen. That book is one of the most beautiful books I've read in a very, very long time. I just read this past month. I read Done Dirt Cheap by Sarah Nicole Lemon, which is one of the first contemporaries I've read in a very long time. And it was incredible. You know, just like girls riding motorcycles and trying to get through life in a small town in America. A book that I wish I had written would probably be, I don't know. I can't say. I can't think of it. So I'm sorry.
Well, before we head over to Twitter and answer any questions from people there, can you tell us what readers can expect to see next from you, or give us some hints? Well, I think you already kind of did.
Well, yeah. So I have Brooklyn Brew House 2 and 3. Mm-hmm. Brooklyn Brew House 2 is from Lula's point of view. Brooklyn Brew House 3 is from Rose's point of view. I'm also writing adult romance under the name Zoe Castile, and I will tweet that out, the handle, so you can follow me there. That book doesn't come out until fall 2018, so there's still a while to go. Cool. But those are my projects.
Nice.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you. And don't leave us just yet. Those of you who are watching, we're going to go over to Twitter, and you can keep asking questions. It was so awesome talking to you. Nice seeing your beautiful face.
Yes.
All right. See you guys on Twitter.
See you on Twitter.
See you in a bit.
Bye. Bye.